among other things. She took a sip, the warmth enveloping her, yet it did little to stave the chill of her uncertainty. Her thoughts were a chaotic whirlwind, her affection for Ishmael entwined with the professional risks their relationship entailed. Just then, Rosie Santana burst into the room, her cheerful energy breaking the tension like fresh air into a stuffy room. "Good morning, lovebirds," she declared, her arms flung wide as if encapsulating the entire atmosphere. Tonja's cheeks warmed, and she shot Ishmael a quick glance, his smirk as mischievous as always. He was unfazed by Rosie's incursion, leaning casually against the counter with an ease that filled Tonja with a mixture of annoyance and intrigue. "Coffee for me, please. I need some of that liquid gold to chase the baby blues away," Rosie continued, moving with a practiced familiarity towards the coffee pot. "Baby blues? You? I thought you were the one glowing with joy and life," Ishmael teased, his dark eyes sparkling with playful mischief. Rosie rolled her eyes, filling her cup. "You mean the eye bags? Thanks for the reminder. I'll pay you back by letting you babysit while I take a well-deserved nap, mister. I have all the time in the world." "Did I hear a nap? You're going to need those for the sleepless nights ahead," Tonja replied, her heart swelling with pride for her friend. Rosie's transition into motherhood was both magnificent and daunting, painting a vivid canvas of life's complexities. As laughter filled the kitchen, Tonja's thoughts drifted momentarily. A shadow darkened her heart. She was terrified of losing herself in a vortex of emotions surrounded by impending danger. Ishmael stood near, a constant reminder of the past she couldn't escape. Torn as she was, vulnerability flared within her, daring to surface. "I'm good with kids," Ishmael chimed in, folding his arms across his chest, his confidence palpable. "But only if you promise not to throw me into the deep end without a floaty." "Every great detective needs to dive into the chaos," Tonja replied, her gaze locking onto his. There was something deeper tethering them, an invisible connection laden with shared risks and buried truths. Suddenly, Rosie's ringtone pierced through the levity, her focus momentarily shifting to the phone lighting up her screen. "I swear, if it's another diaper woes consultation," she muttered, glancing at Tonja and then around the room. That's when Tonja felt it, the warmth from Ishmael's body as he stepped closer, the space between them narrowing. The room began to ebb, the laughter fading, and suddenly, their world became distilled into something singular. His hand brushed against hers, an almost electric jolt coursing through her. "Are you ready to dive?" Ishmael spoke softly, his gaze unyielding, as if daring her to take the plunge with him into a world that was both terrifying and thrilling. Tonja's breath hitched, and for a fleeting moment, fear was replaced with an overwhelming craving. Before she could respond, his fingers intertwined with hers, the intimacy shifting the air around them. "I'm not letting you go," he said, his words a promise, his intensity encapsulating the unspoken connection they shared. Just before the potential rush of their shared emotions collided, the tension was abruptly cut short by Rosie's phone call, her voice once again filling the air with urgency. Breaking the moment, Tonja felt the need to pull back, but in her heart, she knew that this was a fight she wasn't ready to escape. As Rosie turned her back momentarily, Tonja caught Ishmael's gaze, an exquisite tension simmering between them. In that charged silence, time stood still, each heartbeat echoing a choice that rippled into the depths of her life. "I shall be ready to dive with you when it's this clear," Tonja whispered, a resolve fusing with uncertainty, the space between them a fragile promise of what was to come. Scene 22, Enzo's past returns. The afternoon sun poured through the wide glass panels of the Soho loft, illuminating the sleek design but casting long, looming shadows that seemed to grow darker with each second. The hum of the city below was a distant murmur, a backdrop to the charged atmosphere inside. Tonja Coleman stood by the large window, her fingers grazing the cool surface of the glass as she peered out, half separated from the chaos of New York. This loft, normally a sanctuary, felt oppressive today, each heartbeat echoing louder than the last. "Tonja, you okay?" Enzo Arnaud's voice broke through the silence, his tone woven with concern. His tall frame leaned casually against the polished countertop, but there was an electric tension running through him, a flicker of vulnerability in his dark eyes that Tonja seldom saw. "Yeah, just thinking," she said, her back still turned to him. She wanted to maintain that barrier, to keep her racing thoughts from spilling over just yet. Thinking about what? He pressed gently, stepping closer. There was a warmth in his presence that contrasted sharply with the tightening knot in her stomach. His question hung in the air, rich with unspoken words. Tonja felt the pull of his sincerity, the way he wanted her to share her thoughts, as much as she wanted to shield herself from the impending storm. But before she could conjure an answer, the apartment door swung open with a force unexpected on a lazy afternoon. It was Rosie Santana, her vibrant presence filling the room with an effortless energy. "Guys, you won't believe what I just found out. I was at the coffee shop and..." Rosie's excitement was abruptly cut off as an unfamiliar figure stepped in behind her, a shadow cutting through the entryway light. It was a man from Enzo's past, a face etched with a mixture of disdain and something darker. His entrance was like a crack of thunder, colliding the delicate atmosphere into chaos. "Enzo," he said, the name laced with bitterness. "I was wondering when I'd see you again." Tonja instinctively shifted, her stance becoming defensive, eyes darting between Enzo and Rosie, who wore a mask of surprise. "What do you want, Davion?" Enzo's voice was low, almost dangerously calm. The tension in the room ballooned, an electric charge that made the air feel thick. "I want what's mine," Davion sneered, his gaze flicking to Tonja as if assessing her value in this unfolding drama. "That case you think you cracked? Yeah, I have some unfinished business there." Tonja's intuition hummed to life around her, a warning signal rising inside as she stepped slightly in front of Enzo, her protective instincts kicking into gear. "Enzo's not going anywhere with you," she replied, her tone firm, yet an unspoken uncertainty lingered beneath. "Really? Is that how you see it?" Davion laughed, an unsettling sound. "You have no idea the kinds of games we play." The past flickered like shadows on the walls, tension weaving a complex tapestry of fear and betrayal. Tonja locked eyes with Enzo, searching for answers amid the storm brewing in his usually steady demeanor. She felt the urgency to protect him, but also realized the depths of secrets hidden behind his silence. "Enzo, what does he mean?" Tonja pressed, her voice a low whisper, even as she felt the threat of Davion looming behind her. Enzo's expression darkened, a fierce storm brewing in his gaze. "It's not worth getting into it right now. I can handle this." "Handle it?" Davion scoffed, taking a step forward as aggression flickered. "You think you can just walk away? You're in this whether you like it or not." A depth of vulnerability crossed Enzo's face, pulling at Tonja's heart. "I made mistakes," he admitted, voice low. There was a heaviness in his tone, an admission wrapped in regret, but not the kind that defines me now. Before Tonja could respond, Rosie interjected. "Listen, we're not interested in any games. Just state your business and leave." The room pulsated with uncertainty, the echoes of Enzo's past now colliding with the present. As the tension thickened, Tonja felt the need to bridge the distance within the weight of unsaid words. "We all have pasts, but we choose who we become," she declared, heart racing. There was power in her conviction, and she sensed every eye, including Davion's, assessing her resolve. "Clever, but you don't know what you're dealing with," Davion warned, a sinister grin flashing across his face. Tonja didn't flinch. "And you don't know who you're up against," she shot back, her voice fortified by her own instincts. In that moment, the stakes crystallized further. Trust hung by a thin thread, and the truth required unearthing buried fears that could either shatter or fortify their bond. The confrontation stretched, a taut band ready to snap. Enzo shifted to Tonja's side, his energy intermingling with hers, as if drawing strength from their unspoken connection. Their eyes met, and in that exchange, the fight ahead became more than just a confrontation. It was a test of everything they had fought for. "Let's settle this," Enzo said, quietly steeling his resolve, knowing they had to confront the past to forge their future. Scene 23, bonded by secrets. The dimly lit cafe buzzed with the low hum of conversation and the intoxicating aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with baked goods. Tonja Coleman leaned forward, her deep mahogany eyes fixed on the creased paper spread out between her and Enzo Arnaud. Sticky notes marked various locations across the map, connected by uneven lines, each one a clue leaning deeper into the heart of the conspiracy that plagued the city. "Do you really think he knows we're onto him?" Tonja asked, breaking the stillness between them, her voice a deliberate whisper against the escalating tension. Enzo's gaze flickered, scanning the room as if the shadows might reveal unseen threats. If he does, it changes everything. We need to be ahead of him, particularly now that he knows. His voice trailed off, that familiar dark cloud shadowing his expression. They weren't just chasing clues anymore. They were in a high-stakes game, the ominous threat of Ishmael Devereaux looming larger than ever. Tonja felt her heart quicken, the weight of secrets pressing down like the thick humidity just before a summer storm. "I wish we could just get some clear answers," she murmured, frustration mingling with fear. She felt vulnerable laying her thoughts bare, yet with every word shared, the distance between them seemed to melt. Enzo leaned in, his shoulder brushing against hers. "Maybe we have to rely on what we feel, not just what we know." Tonja hesitated, a flicker of conflict dancing behind her eyes. The tenderness in his tone wrapped around her like a warm blanket, igniting the embers of longing they both tried to ignore. Just then, she caught a glimpse of his tattoo, a snake winding delicately around his wrist, a symbol of his own past, and a subtle tug of caution in place. A loud laugh from a nearby table broke the spell, grating against the intensity of their exchange. Tonja glanced over, but then found her focus returning to Enzo. His silver blue eyes shimmered with unspoken words, drawing her in like a song she knew but couldn't quite decipher. "Have you ever thought," he said slowly, choosing his words with care, "about how we see each other through the lies we tell ourselves? How fear can create walls, yet one whisper can take them down?" A pause enveloped them, the cafe fading into obscurity as Tonja fought with the rising tide of emotions. She felt the pull toward him, a magnetic force born of shared trauma and the fires of unresolved attraction. "I don't want to hide from you," she confessed at last, her voice barely more than a breath. "But it's hard to keep the past at bay." She traced a finger along the edge of the map, the crinkled paper safe under her touch, grounding her in the moment. "Maybe it doesn't have to be about hiding," Enzo replied, his voice low and deep, and she felt the impact of each syllable resonate within her. "What if instead we stood together against it?" Their eyes locked, and the world outside their small bubble quieted into nothingness. In that silence, the questions they had yet to articulate hung heavy between them, sparking an undeniable intimacy. The invisible barrier that had long kept them cautious seemed to crack, a thin yet potent thread of understanding forming in its place. She leaned a fraction closer, catching the faint trace of his cologne, a mix of leather and cedar, rich and dark, stirring something deep within her. "What are you so afraid of?" she finally whispered, her breath mingling with the remnants of the coffee-scented air. "I fear the truth, Tonja," Enzo admitted, his gaze searching hers, "and maybe what might happen if it brings you too close." With his words, the tension shifted, a palpable electricity rippling in the air. In a moment fraught with choices and consequences, Tonja felt the urge to bridge the gap further. "Then let's face it together," she breathed, reaching a hand out, fingers brushed against his. For an instant, they lingered in that grasp, the warmth beneath their touch a fusion of need and desperation. Just then, a shout erupted from across the cafe, a scuffle, chairs clattering, voices raised in argument, jarring them back to the precarious reality of their lives. Tonja tightened her grip momentarily, a fleeting anchor in a storm. She took a breath. "What do we do?" "There's no backing down now," Enzo stated, his voice firm yet soothing, eyes locked onto hers with fierce determination. "We uncover the truth, whatever it takes." As they stood to leave, the weight of the world still pressing down, Tonja couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental, something that would change everything. And she found herself teetering on the edge of trust, her heart pounding like a drum in response to Enzo's resolve. Their journey together was only beginning. Scene 24. A dangerous game. The autumn wind rustled through the vibrant leaves of Washington Park, a brilliant tapestry of amber and crimson glimmering against the gray sky. Raindrops began to plummet from darkening clouds, their rhythmic patter against the earthy ground mirroring the tension brewing between Tonja Coleman and Enzo Arnaud. Their breath visible in the chilling air, they rounded the corner of a secluded pathway, eyes scanning the edges where shadows twisted like haunting specters. Just like old times, Enzo smirked, his voice laced with a daring edge as he pulled his jacket closer around him, the leather hugging his athletic frame. Except this time, Tonja shot back, her voice low and steady, we're not just running for fun. A subtle shiver ran down her spine, not from the cold, but from the thrill of impending confrontation. The game they were playing was both an exhilarating dance and a perilous struggle. They were chasing down a lead that turned out to be a trap set by a powerful adversary who had been lurking in the shadows, a shadowy figure that knew their every move. The stakes were higher than just their reputations. Their very lives hung in the balance. As they moved deeper into the park, the wind carried the acrid scent of damp earth, mingling with the faint aroma of burnt wood from a nearby barbecue, the warmth and comfort it promised, starkly contrasting with the chill creeping into their bones. Tanja's heart raced as she recalled the last glimpse of their opponent, a fleeting phantom, tall and imposing, disappearing into the dark. "Have you?" Enzo began, but before he could finish, they heard a rustle behind a cluster of trees. They both froze, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "On three," Tonja whispered, her hazel eyes locked onto his deep blue ones, a silent understanding passing between them. 1, 2, 3. They sprang from their hiding spot, moving in synchrony like dancers on a stage, the years of partner work paying off. Enzo led the way, his sharp instincts guiding them through the dense underbrush. But Tonja felt a surge of something beyond danger. A warmth blossomed within her as they navigated the threat together. She could trust him, and in this moment, that felt electrifying. Suddenly, a volley of bullets shot through the air, splintering the trees around them. Enzo instinctively pulled Tonja behind a large oak. The bark scratched her arms, and her heart thundered as she pressed against him. "Stay close," he breathed heavily, his gaze scanning for the source of fire. "Whoever it is, they're good," she noted, the back of her mind racing to process the imminent danger as the adrenaline pumped through her. "We need to keep moving." "Agreed." His grip tightened on her wrist, grounding her. There was a pulsing energy in their connection, an intimacy ignited amidst the chaos. Without another word, they crept around the oak, Tonja's senses heightened. Each footfall was deliberate, each breath measured. Time seemed to stretch, amplified by the distant echoes of their unseen adversary. The rain began to pour, mingling with the adrenaline that surged through their veins, rustling the leaves and creating a chaotic symphony. Tonja could smell the earthy scent of wet grass mixed with licks of danger on the wind. Every so often, she glanced towards Enzo, the way he moved, confident, assured. There was strength in that. "Left," she called suddenly, trusting her instincts. Enzo nodded sharply, following her lead without hesitation. As they made their way around a bend, and a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man with a dark hoodie pulled tight against the rain. He raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Enzo was already on him, tackling him to the ground. They rolled through the mud, a tangle of limbs and chaos, until Tonja leapt in, grabbing the assailant's arm, twisting it behind his back with her surprising strength. "Who sent you?" Enzo demanded, breathless. "I won't say a thing to you," the man spat, a sneer etched across his face. In that moment, Tonja felt a flash of insight surge through her, a connection sparking from the grip of her hand. Images surged in her mind, dark alleyways, whispered deals, betrayal. She gasped, releasing him as she staggered back. "Ishmael," she murmured, realization dawning. Enzo looked at her, his expression a mix of concern and urgency. "What is it?" "It's all connected," she revealed, her voice shaking slightly. She stepped closer, her heart racing both from the change in mood and the raw energy between them. "But it's more dangerous than we thought." As the rain pelted them like tiny daggers, she felt the heat of Enzo's proximity. It ignited an ache in her, a magnetic pull that quenched the fear roiling within her like a distant storm cloud trying to break free. "We need to work together completely," she said softly, locking eyes with him. "Always," he replied, the promise resonating between them as they readied themselves for the next act in this precarious game. Their fingers brushed for just a second, and in that heartbeat, the world around them blurred. A single vessel composed of trust, fear, and something deeper, blossoming like a flower through a crack in concrete. Scene 25. Friendship tested. The hum of the city felt distant from the cramped, dimly lit cafe, where Tonja Coleman and Rosie Santana sat hunched over a table, the air thick with espresso and uncertainty. Rosie's brow furrowed as she stirred her drink, the metal spoon clinking against the ceramic cup. "Honestly, how far do you think you'll go?" Rosie asked, her voice steadier than the jittery movements of her fingers. "This line of work, it can swallow you whole." Tonja leaned back, the chair creaking under her weight. "I've faced worse, Rosie. You know that. But this, it's not just a job anymore. There's something bigger at stake. I can feel it." Her emerald eyes were sharp, searching for an understanding that seemed elusive. Rosie shook her head, setting the spoon down with a soft thud. "I'm just worried you might drown in this, Tonja. The city is darker than most people realize." She glanced toward the window, a shadow briefly crossing her face, hinting at a shared fear stirring from the depths of their friendship. "It won't come to that," Tonja asserted, though a flicker of doubt brushed across her mind. She reached out, her fingers grazing Rosie's forearm. "I promise I won't let it. Not without a fight." Rosie hesitated, her gaze fixated on their joined hands. The warmth of Tonja's touch sent a rush of vulnerability coursing through her, a reminder of the tenderness amidst the chaos. "You say that, but this is a relentless game. You've seen the horror, the collateral damage. What if—" Tonja cut her off, the intensity in her voice escalating. "What if I don't care about the consequences?" She was surprised at herself, the strength in her words. "I can't let fear dictate my choices. Not again." The intensity of their conversation clung to the air, as if the cafe had fallen silent around them. In that moment, the camaraderie that had once been as comfortable as worn denim felt fragile. Tonja leaned closer, her voice dropping an octave. "It's more than just about me, Rosie. I need you on my side. You've always had my back." Rosie's defenses crumbled. The walls she had built to protect herself from the inevitable pain of losing her best friend felt insurmountable. She couldn't let fear dictate the essence of their bond. "And you've always had mine. But what if this becomes too much?" A tremor underlined her words. The reality of their situation loomed large like a storm cloud ready to burst. Tonja felt that flicker, too, the deep-rooted affection that transcended the surface of their friendship. "You think I'm invincible?" she asked softly, her voice no longer emboldened but tinged with a quiet vulnerability. "I'm just trying to figure it all out. Just like you." Before Rosie could respond, the warmth in the room shifted. An unseen tension danced between them, charged and electric. Suddenly, it was as if all the unsaid words hung in the air, waiting patiently for release. Their eyes locked, a silent agreement forged in the body language of long-held emotions. Rosie leaned forward, close enough that Tonja could feel the heat radiating from her friend's body. "What if we just—" she began, then faltered, the edges of her resolve wavering. Tonja, sensing the shift, reached out. "Do you want to?" Her breath hitched, the world outside forgotten momentarily as the possibility hung between them like a delicate thread, ready to snap at the slightest touch. A faint nod from Rosie, a heartbeat of uncertainty. Then, with a shared breath, the space vanished and the distance melted. Their lips met in a hesitant brush, soft and innocent, yet laced with a depth that surged beneath the surface like a tide pulled into the moon's embrace. The cafe faded away, all the troubles and the clamorous city life outside dulled to a whisper. Tonja pulled back, her heart racing. "Was that unexpected?" Rosie murmured, a shy smile breaking through. "But maybe we needed it." "Maybe," Tonja echoed, eyes glimmering with newfound understanding. An unspoken connection solidified, threading through the palpable tension, intertwining their paths like the delicate vines creeping along the cafe's windows. A journey fraught with danger and dark corners awaited them, but together, perhaps they could face it all. In that moment, Tonja felt an unwavering strength surge within her. She would protect this bond, come what may. A glint of mischievous humor danced in her eyes as she teased. "So does this mean I get to share my terrifying visions with you over more than just coffee?" Rosie laughed, a lightness filling the growing shadows around them. "As long as you promise not to haunt my dreams with any more mind-blowing revelations," she replied, and both women burst into laughter, the sound echoing through the cafe, a reminder that even through darkness, friendship ignited life. Scene 26. The web tightens. The city lay cloaked in a shroud of mist, its skyline distorted against the silver-gray morning sky, a spectral silhouette that matched Tonja Coleman's tumultuous thoughts. The dampness in the air lingered, heavy with the scent of impending rain, and the patter of droplets seemed to echo her racing heart. This morning felt different, charged with unspoken tension, a palpable anxiety swirling beneath the surface of her serene exterior. She was standing at the threshold of revelations she wasn't sure she was ready to confront. "You're quiet today." Enzo Arnaud leaned against the doorframe of the sleek, modern office that had become their makeshift headquarters. The sunlight filtering through the large windows caught the determined line of his jaw, framing him in soft light. "Too quiet. It's not like you." "Just thinking," Tonja replied, her fingers absently tracing the intricate designs on her laptop. The screen blinked back at her, filled with unsolved pieces of evidence that seemed more like fragments of her past than clues to the present. "We're getting closer, but it's all tangled up in my history." Enzo stepped closer, dynamic energy radiating from him, a lullaby of warmth contrasting with the chill outside. "Your history or our history?" Tanja glanced up, meeting his gaze, the raw intensity sparking between them. "You know it's complicated." "Not complicated, just layered. You've got layers, Tanja. You know I love discovering each one." His voice was a low murmur, thick with promise and something deeper, urging her to pull back the curtain on her past. The attraction pulled at her, taut like a string ready to snap, but the memory of their last complicated encounter hovered in the background, whispers of vulnerabilities exposed and feelings thrust forward, raw and unfiltered. "I'm not ready to unpack everything. Not yet." He moved closer, the warmth radiating off him, enveloping her as he reached for her hand. The world outside faded, leaving only the two of them suspended in this moment. "What if I want to help you with that weight? You don't have to carry it alone." Tanja felt the heat coursing through the touch of his fingers, illuminating her skin as if igniting memories long buried. "Can you handle it?" "Try me," he challenged, a confident smile breaking through the tension. "Besides, I've seen you in action. I'm rather certain you can handle a little entanglement." Though a smile twitched at the corners of her lips, she felt the weight of his words. Enzo saw her strengths, her willpower, but he also peered deeper, searching for her fears. It was terrifying and intoxicating. Suddenly, the sharp trill of her phone cut through the moment, vibrating on the desk. She broke their connection and turned slightly away, pulling back from the electric intimacy they had built, yet struggling to maintain. The screen flashed a message from Rosie, her best friend and confidant, detailing another thread in the conspiracy they were unraveling. "It's Rosie. She might have found something." He stepped close again, brushing his arm against hers. "Are you sure you want to dive back into that rabbit hole? You look like you'd rather stay here with me." Tanja hesitated, awash in the dizzying blend of duty and desire. Her heart ached at the thought of the trouble ahead, the stakes higher than ever. "I don't know if that's possible." "Just think of it as a brief intermission," Enzo murmured, leaning in, his closeness igniting a warmth that tickled her senses. "Let's just savor the moment before moving forward, shall we?" For a heartbeat, everything felt possible. The rest of the world faded, and it was just them two souls on the precipice of connection amid chaos. As he lowered his face to hers, she could feel the rugged warmth of his breath ghost across her skin, their lips dangerously close yet uncharted. The kiss came unexpectedly, soft yet fierce, like a spark igniting a flame within her. It sent a cascade of heat surging down her spine, and she melted into him, giving in to the temptation to slip away from the chaos surrounding them. The world slipped away, the investigations, the shadows lurking in her past, even the rain that finally began to patter against the glass windows. Instead, she fell into Enzo, lost in the depths of his kiss. Just as she surrendered to the fire within, the phone vibrated once more, an unwanted interruption. They both pulled back, breathless, a sliver of reality slicing through their intimate cocoon. Enzo smirked, his turquoise eyes twinkling. "I'd say that's a sign, but clearly the universe has its timing off. Let's hope it can wait a moment longer." Tanja whispered, resolute, willing to grasp a fleeting moment, even amid the brewing storm. "And if it can't," he teased, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear, his touch igniting a fresh rush of warmth, "then we'll make it our own." She paused, eyes locked onto his, heartbeat thundering in synchrony with the patter of rain beginning to fall. Because sometimes, Enzo, the weight of the past is easier just for a moment to forget. In that charged silence, both sensed that the weight of what lay ahead was even more dangerous than they could imagine. But for now, they had carved out this moment, a secret, a sanctuary, culminating in a promise to face the web, tightening around them together, no matter what awaited. Scene 27, Echoes of the Past. The sky hung heavy with clouds, a dense gray blanket that loomed over the city like an unshakable weight. Raindrops began to fall, dappling the pavement and drumming softly on the roof of an old diner, where Tonja Coleman stood at the window, watching people scurry past, each one a blur of urgency. The air was thick with the scent of wet asphalt mingling with the unmistakable aroma of brewing coffee, a nostalgic comfort in her otherwise strained mood. Tonja had come to this diner searching for leads on a cold case, but instead, she found herself wrapped in memories that were anything but tranquil. As the rain intensified, she thought of her childhood, a time defined by laughter, the scent of freshly baked pies cooling on windowsills, and the playful echoes of her mother calling her name. It was a stark contrast to the shadows of the present, with every clap of thunder reminding her of the harsh realities she faced now. The case she was investigating had twisted and turned, drawing her ever closer to the enigmatic Ishmael Devereaux, a man whose dark, inscrutable eyes haunted her thoughts. Coffee, Tonja? Or are we still indulging in tortured memories? Rosie Santana teased, plopping down across from her, a swirl of vibrant energy even on a stormy day. Tonja managed a half smile. A little bit of both, I guess. This case is getting under my skin. Or maybe it's the company, Rosie quipped, leaning back with a grin. You know what they say, love and crime, a deadly mix. You falling for that brooding detective? He's not a detective, Tonja countered, brushing off the comment. He's more like a puzzle I can't figure out. She hesitated, as if weighing her next words. He's dangerous, Rosie. I can feel it. The bell above the diner door jingled, and in walked Ishmael. His presence seemed to alter the very atmosphere, cutting through the chatter and laughter, his deep-set gaze locking onto Tonja like a magnet. This wasn't the first time their eyes met here, but each instance felt charged, electric, like lightning about to strike both the ground and their guarded hearts. Drinking coffee alone? You know you're not supposed to play detective on an empty stomach, he said, walking over to their table with an effortless grace that made it hard for anyone to look away. Tonja's heart skipped a beat, the nervous energy coursing through her like the raindrops tapping against the glass. Rosie stood, pretending to swat away a non-existent fly. I see the two of you have a romantic dinner in our future. I'm just a distraction, really. With a wink, she strolled away, leaving Tonja and Ishmael to face the palpable tension that flooded the tiny booth. I thought I might find you here, he said, leaning in slightly, his voice low and smooth. It felt personal, reserved for her and her alone. What do you want, Ishmael? She challenged, trying to mask her racing pulse. I'm working. He met her gaze, a storm brewing in his dark eyes that matched the weather outside. I want to help you. This case, it's not just another headline. It connects to something much deeper. Tonja felt a shiver run down her spine, the vulnerabilities she usually kept so tight beneath her cold facade, threatening to unravel. Why should I trust you? You've been nothing but a shadow in my life. You think I want to be in the shadows? He shot back, the intensity in his voice sending tremors through her. You think I enjoy this? You have no idea what's at stake. She inhaled sharply, both anger and a strange longing pushing against her ribcage. Then stop hiding. Stop playing games, Ishmael. In that moment, the air between them sizzled, a thick silence enveloping their little corner of the diner. He reached out, brushing his fingers against hers, a simple gesture, but it was electric, igniting something buried deep within her. The memory of long-lost childhood warmth flooded back, a desire to be understood, to be shared. I can't help it, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. I just want you to feel safe. I know I can protect you. The honesty in his words cracked through her defenses. Then show me, she whispered, the challenge reverberating in the space between them. Without another word, their lips met, a soft collision that quickly turned fervent, as if all the unspoken secrets and hidden affections had been bottled up, now spilling free. For a brief moment, Tonja melted against him, surrendering to the warmth of his embrace, the tantalizing taste of his kiss flooding her senses with a bittersweet intensity. But as quickly as it began, the reality rushed back in, a torrent of rain thundering against the diner roof. They pulled apart, both breathless and startled, the moment suspended in time. Tanja looked away, fighting the rise of emotions that threatened to turn into chaos. "Let's focus on the case," she suggested, her heart still racing. "Right," he replied, the distance between them growing once more. But the air was thick with a new understanding. They were irrevocably linked now, not just by the investigation, but by the echoes of all they had yet to face. Scene 28, Crossroads of Truths. As raindrops pattered against the windows, a low rumble of thunder echoed in the distance, underscoring the tension simmering in the air. Tanja leaned over the cluttered table, her fingers tracing the edges of a map strewn with notes and photographs. Enzo stood opposite her, arms crossed, his piercing gaze fixed on the swirling lines of ink and clues resting between them. "Do you ever wonder if we're chasing shadows?" Enzo asked, his voice low and contemplative. The flicker of candlelight illuminated the chiseled contours of his face, revealing a hint of vulnerability she had seldom seen. "Every day," Tanja replied, lifting her gaze to meet his. The weight of his words settled heavily in her chest, unlocking a door she wasn't sure she was ready to open. Silence fell, thick and suffocating, as they both grappled with uncertainty, the intimate connection between them palpable. "I sometimes feel like we're two characters in a story, lost in a plot neither of us can control," Enzo added, stepping closer, the scent of cedarwood and leather enveloping her senses. His presence radiated warmth and power, inviting her into the space between what was real and what could be. Tanja swallowed hard, the air around them electric. What if this story isn't just about justice? What if it's about us? She leaned back slightly, her heart racing at the uncharted territory they were beginning to tread. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Ishmael entered, drenched from the rain, a storm brewing in his eyes. "Have I interrupted something?" he asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm, a practiced mask covering the turmoil beneath. "No, just sharing secrets," Enzo replied, a hint of challenge in his voice. He pressed closer to Tanja, bridging the gap that Ishmael just enlarged. Ishmael's jaw tightened, his gaze darting between them like a hawk sensing prey. "Secrets are the least of our problems. We need to confront what's coming. Now." Tanja sensed the shift, the clash of energies igniting the space around them. Maybe what's coming is a chance for us to redefine everything. She felt bold, daring to challenge the darkness swirling within Ishmael. "Redefine what? Risk?" Ishmael shot back, emphasizing the last word as if it were a threat. "You're playing with fire." "I've always liked fire," she quipped, feeling an exhilarating rush, turning to Enzo for support. "Maybe it's a part of me." "Maybe you're too close to the inferno to see the danger," Ishmael countered, the weight of his concern cutting through the tension. His eyes bore into hers, a storm of emotions passing through as he stood vigilant at the edge of their delicate dynamic. Enzo remained unfazed, his confidence radiating over the brewing conflict. Or maybe the inferno is what makes her formidable. That same fire is why we're a team. "Team?" Ishmael laughed bitterly, his voice rising. "This is chaos, not teamwork. You're both walking a tightrope, and there's no safety net." In an impulsive motion, Tanja reached out, grasping Ishmael's hand. She felt the rush of his energy, the fleeting connection sparking between them. "Trust is a risk I'm willing to take." He hesitated, a spark of surprise flickering in his eyes as he processed her words. "And what about him?" Ishmael nodded toward Enzo, his tone softening, revealing a layer of worry. "Can he protect you when the shadows start to close in?" Tanja dropped her gaze, her dilemma igniting a swirl of conflicting emotions. "I don't need protection. I need clarity." Her heart raced as she inhaled the lingering scent of the rain, a promise of renewal. "You might not realize it, but clarity can bring danger too," Ishmael warned, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. Tanja released a shaky breath, her resolve hardening. "Then bring on the danger. I want to face it all." The intensity crackled, wrapping around them in a thick cocoon of unspoken feelings. Enzo shifted closer, his energy blending with hers in a way that sent shivers down her spine. I admire your courage, he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. But the choice isn't easy. I'm done choosing fear, Tonja replied, her voice steady. It's time to move forward. As the storm intensified outside, hammering rain against the glass, Tonja felt her heart teetering on the edge between fate and free will, caught in a cyclone of truth and the fiery pursuit of what lay ahead. Then let's start this story, Enzo said softly, words wrapping around her like a promise. Together they stood at the brink, ready to dive into the unknown. Scene 29. Emotional Barriers. The dim light of the cafe wrapped around Tonja like a soft blanket, creating a cozy yet intimate atmosphere. Outside, a cool autumn breeze ruffled the vibrant leaves, their colors igniting beneath the bakery's warm glow. Inside, the sweet scent of cinnamon mingled with freshly brewed coffee, but the fragrant comfort felt distant to Tonja. Her eyes, dark and contemplative, focused on the intricate patterns of the wooden table, the joints and grains swirling like her thoughts. Across from her, Enzo stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, the soft clink of the spoon against the ceramic punctuating the silence. His brow furrowed as he watched her, searching for cracks in her fortitude. You seem miles away, detective, he remarked, his voice smooth with a hint of teasing. She lifted her gaze to meet his, her emerald eyes igniting with an inner fire. Just thinking, she said, her tone light, a deliberate mask over the emotional storm brewing within. It's hard to turn it off sometimes. Enzo leaned forward, an intensity in his gaze. You can't solve everything alone, Tonja. You know that, right? His words hung between them, a quiet challenge embedded with concern. His challenge struck deep. Tonja's smile faltered, revealing the vulnerability she fought to conceal. What would you know about my battles? She shot back, the heat of the moment filling the air, crackling with tightly wound tension. More than you think. He leaned back, forcing the tension to shift, but tightening the space between them. I know the weight of choices, the fear of letting someone in. It's... His voice softened, peeling back layers of bravado. It's terrifying. Tonja studied him. Underneath the bravado of the charismatic detective, she caught a glimpse of something raw and unrefined. And yet you stand there, day in and day out, she replied, her tone laced with intrigue, challenging the invisible walls he put up. Fighting the good fight, I guess, he said, wry but sincere. But it's easier if you're not holding back. Why do you keep pushing me away? A tension flooded the table, like the pungent aroma of the coffee wafting lazily through the room. She hesitated, sensing the raw openness his question demanded. I fear what's on the other side, Enzo. Intimacy means vulnerability and trust. The weight of her voice faltered on the last word, and she looked down again. The light illuminated his chiseled features, each angle softened by a hint of longing as he leaned closer. We're both fighters. There was a softness now, an invitation threaded within his words. Don't you think it's worth the risk? Tonja inhaled sharply, the air thick with unspoken desires. The cafe faded into the background as the distance between them shrank furiously. Each heartbeat echoed, a virtual drum roll leading into the unknown. Enzo reached across the table and gently brushed his fingers against hers. The touch ignited a warmth that spread through her, unraveling the tightly wound strands of her guarded heart. I want to believe that, she whispered, her breath catching in her throat. But every time I think I'm ready, the past whispers doubt. Let the whispers be just that, whispers. His thumb caressed the back of her hand, and in that simple action, the world outside faded further. We have to believe in something. Why not each other? The intensity of his gaze entranced her, drawing her deeper into his magnetic pull. The moment stretched, a shimmering thread connecting their souls. Tonja could feel something rising inside, a rush of emotion that battled with her fears. She leaned in closer, an unconscious movement of her heart leading her forward. When their lips finally met, it was tentative at first, a soft brush that ignited the air between them into a blaze. The taste of coffee mingled with the spark of electricity, sending shocks through her veins. The kiss deepened, growing invincible, wrapping them in a cocoon where vulnerability was both a choice and a revelation. With every heartbeat, the walls they built tumbled. The rush was potent, filling the voids they both carried. They were young, free, and filled with uncharted possibilities in that moment. It was intimate and aching, and slowly their connection began to fill the crevices of their fears. Then came the soft click of the cafe door opening, breaking the reverie. Tonja and Enzo pulled away, both breathless, their foreheads brushing against each other, eyes locked. "Our ghosts aren't gone," Tonja whispered, her voice barely above a murmur, the weight of the world pressing back in, but her heart ignited with hope. "No, but we can choose to face them together," Enzo replied, his voice steady, holding her gaze like an unyielding anchor. In that crowded cafe, amidst life moving forward around them, they stood poised on the precipice, a moment of transcendent vulnerability, poised for whatever lay ahead. Scene 30, a night of reckoning. The air hung heavy beneath a velvet sky, crackling with an electric tension that mirrored the pulse of Tanja's heart. In this moment, she felt the collision of instinct and fear, memories of her past mingling with the uncertain future. A sharp glare reflected off the gleaming glass towers of the city, where shadows played tricks that felt all too familiar. She pressed her palms against her thighs to calm the tremor and steadied her breath. "Tonight might be the night we finally break this," she murmured, but the words barely reached her ears. The darkness held secrets, and she was ready to confront them. Without warning, the silence shattered as Enzo stepped into her periphery, his presence instantly grounding. He moved with purpose, his expression serious yet steely, the light catching the slick strands of his dark hair, emphasizing the rugged lines of his face. "You ready?" he asked, his voice a low, rumbling whisper that thrummed in her chest. Tonja nodded, holding his gaze. There was something magnetic about him tonight, something that set her heart racing and made her lean in just a fraction more. The scent of sandalwood from his cologne filled the air, wrapping around her like a promise. "Let's do this," she breathed, the weight of the words hanging between them, like the stillness before a storm. In a flash, they moved, weaving through the narrow alleyways, navigating the underbelly of the city like shadows weaving through the night. Each echo of their footsteps was a countdown to the chaos that awaited them. Tanja's pulse quickened with every step, adrenaline flooding her senses, yet the uncertainty of their mission weighed heavily on her shoulders. Suddenly, the confrontation erupted. A figure dashed toward them, cloaked in darkness, hands poised to strike. Tonja instinctively reacted, her instincts sharpened by her psychic training. With a fluid motion, she sidestepped, her body coiling like a spring, before landing a swift blow that sent her assailant sprawling back into the brick wall. Enzo was right there, a flicker of movement as he engaged another foe. She caught a glimpse of his fierce determination, the way his jaw clenched and muscles tensed, every movement tested, every reflex quickened by the stakes at hand. The adrenaline surged through her, igniting a fire within. They were in sync, their bond igniting the chaos into a dance of frantic coordination, every strike and parry flowing seamlessly. But in the eye of the tempest, their connection pulsed beneath the surface, a throbbing ache that had nothing to do with the danger surrounding them. Tanja's gaze found Enzo's through the melee, and for a moment, it felt as though forces beyond them were colliding, time suspending itself. She barely registered the world crumbling into chaos around them, her focus narrowed entirely on the man before her. Between rounds of fists and frantic energy, they exchanged glances that spoke of everything unsaid. At that moment, amidst the swirling dust and the adrenaline-induced haze, the storm outside faded into the background noise, leaving only the intensity crackling between them. "Tonja!" Enzo shouted, dodging a wild punch and sending his opponent sprawling. "We need to move." "I know," she shouted back, the urgency slicing through her heart, urging her forward. There was danger here, but within that danger, a whisper of solace beckoned. With a final surge of strength, they broke free from their attackers and stumbled into the shelter of a nearby doorway. The sounds of battle faded into the distance, leaving them gasping for breath, their foreheads barely inches apart. The heat radiated between them, palpable, electric. "Are you okay?" Enzo asked, his voice thick with concern. His brow glistened with sweat, framing those dark, piercing eyes that seemed to hold an entire universe of emotion, fear, relief, desire. "I am now," Tonja replied, her breath hitching. She couldn't disguise the tidal wave of emotion rising within her. She stepped closer, feeling the magnetic pull that had ignited since their first meeting, now fully ignited, burning fiercely. Enzo reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, each second stretching into eternity. There was a moment of hesitation, their breaths mingling, anticipation hanging thick in the air. She could feel his heartbeat in sync with her own. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, their lips met, soft, sweetly tentative at first. The kiss intensified, unraveling layers of tension that had coiled between them for far too long. The outside world faded, the chaos drained from their surroundings, leaving only the intoxicating warmth of shared breaths and dormant desires. "Tonja," he whispered against her lips, his voice shaky with emotion, yet strong. "Whatever happens tonight." "Tonight's just beginning," she replied, echoing the promise nestled deep within her heart. And in that charged embrace, under the cover of night, they were not just two warriors in a fight. They were something more, igniting a path through the darkness they would forge together, side by side. Scene 31, Reflections on Power. The dim light of the setting sun filtered through the tinted windows, casting long shadows across the sleek office of the Quantico Field Unit. Tonja Coleman stood at the edge of a large glass table, the cityscape sprawling behind her like a living creature, roaring to life with the coming night. Her breath came in slow, measured waves, a stark contrast to the chaos of her thoughts. The events of the day hung heavily in the air, and with each breath, she felt her psychic gifts stretching against the confines of her mind, teasing memories at the edges of her consciousness.